Great that I can be here. Like Tero said, I'm a firefighter. I'm an instructor from Sweden. I also do instructing internationally, and I travel around. And I would describe myself as a fire nerd. I love this job. It's the best job in the world. You get to help people. You get to do firefighting. Uh, so I'm supposed to talk about transitional attack, and you could ask yourself, is this new and innovative to put water in from the outside? Is that the latest thing in the fire service? Of course not. It's been around since firefighting was initially started with buckets. But there are aspects of this that are new and innovative, and the understanding of it and how and when to do it. That is, I would say, new. Um, and I will try to talk about that. So for today, I will talk about how to perform a transitional attack correctly. And I will also talk about when to do it. So if we talk about a room fire, there's a fire in a room and there's an opening to that room. Of course, that's the requisite if we're going to talk about a transition attack done with a normal nozzle and a hose line. Basic of the basic ones. We want to use a straight stream, and we want that to be kept stationary. We don't want to move it around because a fog will entrain air. So if I take a fog, in this case it's just a small model and it's a candle, and I keep it beside the candle, you will see that the fire is dragged into the side of the fog because there's a negative pressure coming behind that fog, and that entrains air. It pulls air into the flame, and it pulls air into the stream. And that could be fire, that could be smoke, could be whatever. So if I take a fog nozzle and I put it into a window and put it on a fog, I will suck air from behind it and push it into the compartment. And we can see on the other window here that it will push all the smoke and all the steam and all the toxic gases out on the next window. Because again, we're entraining air, we're pulling air from behind the nozzle and pushing it forward. That doesn't have to be a problem, but it's a thing it does. But if you take a fog, or in this case, a straight stream that from a further distance breaks up into a fog pattern, that solid stream becomes lots and lots and lots of droplets. Now, if we put those droplets into a window from the outside, in this case a very shallow angle from a far distance, you will shoot everything in front of it, in this case out into the hallway. This was a test out in South Korea about transitional attacking from outside, doing it in this way, putting a stream in. And you don't want to be a victim in that hallway. A firefighter, not a big problem, but it might get a little bit steamy. But we can see that firefighter standing there when that stream hits that window. It pushes everything in front of it. Again, which might not be the best for the victims we're supposed to rescue, and it might not be the best for the firefighters. So if we do it incorrectly, we might hurt someone, we might hurt our firefighters. So a fog, or lots and lots of droplets, take air with it. It circulates inside the room. It will rotate all the gases and it will push everything forward if there's an opening in front of that, on the other side of that entry point. If you look at it like this, you will see we're putting fog into a room. On the other room, there's a fog. It will pull everything out because we're over pressurizing this room. In this case, there was no exit. There was no outlet. There was no other window open. I will do that again. We had a room in front of the firefighters sitting there to the left. Put a fog into the room, into another compartment. You over pressurize that compartment and it pulls everything back towards the firefighter. So if you have sitting on the outside of a doorway or from the outside of the house, you put a fog into that compartment, whatever smoke is inside that compartment will come back, because you cannot push a lot of air into the room and not go anywhere. It will come back if there's no other opening. It will also do it on small cavities. In this case, the small holes, small rooms under those floorboards. If you took a fog, even if it's just a narrow fog, you push air into that hole. The air will go to the sides where the droplets cannot go, and the fire will start to burn more because you're adding air. You're not adding water, because the water just goes straight ahead. The air goes under those tiles, and you add air but not water, which is not what we want to do. We don't want to add air to a fire without adding suppression. So it doesn't matter if a small room, a medium room, or a big room, or in this case, just small openings beneath the tile voids, void spaces, small compartments. If you do it to a room, this is a demonstration from Germany. There's a room on fire. They will use a fog. They will pulse, and they will do a long pulse. They will do continuous flow, but they will add air from outside, push it in, and the fire will increase combustion and come back. We can't push air into a compartment and expect good results. And the fire just gets worse, which is not what we want to see. It's not the best firefighter demonstration ever. But it's excellent for public relations because they will think we are heroes, which is great. You can also do it with a cutting extinguisher or high pressure system. Doesn't matter. If it's made into droplets, it will entrain air into the compartment. In this case, it's high pressured water droplets trying to push into a compartment. The droplets don't survive all the way, but the air does, and it makes the fire worse. It's not the water that makes it worse, it's what the water brings. It's the air. So if you have an open compartment, it will push everything in front of it. But if the compartment is closed, it will push everything towards back at whatever nozzle you're using. A straight stream will entrain air when it hits an object. So the straight stream, in the same example we saw before, but now it will be a straight stream, you will see that it doesn't push the smoke out of the compartment because it doesn't pressurize it. You will see that when it hits the ceiling, that's where the fog is created, and there will be a negative pressure where the fog is being created. You will see the smoke start to rise towards the negative pressure, which is created in the ceiling. So we still create a fog with the straight stream. We just create it not at the nozzle, we create it where the stream hits a surface, which in this case is the ceiling. Another example, we will see that the straight stream will also push things around, but it pushes in front of the straight stream, in front of that fog created, and will not go back towards the firefighter because the negative pressure is at the ceiling, not where the nozzle is. So a straight stream will not pressurize the compartment. It will hit the ceiling, it will create a fog, and it will rotate the space. All the smoke inside that space will start to rotate and cool it down, which is a good thing for suppression. An example, this is a video from the inside the building, outside of the fire compartment. To the left is outside the fire compartment with a fog, and to the right is outside of the fire compartment with a straight stream. You will see that initial push to the left, where the fog overpressurizes the room and pushes everything out. On the right, you will see nothing happening because there's no overpressure being created. On the right, you just have suppression. On the left, you just have overpressurization. I will show that again. You will see on the left side, you will see that overpressurization. There, that's where the fog starts to hit the room. You get more fire for some bits. On the right side with the straight stream, you just have the fire sort of dying out. That was a very short 3-second, 4-second hit with a straight stream and a fog. So straight stream into a top compartment of a house. It will go with a steep angle. We'll get to that. In no pressurization, there's no things pushing out. Fire just quietly stops combustion, which is what we want to see. We don't want to push things around, and we don't want to add air. Another example, sitting on the inside of the fire compartment, just outside of the fire compartment inside the house, a straight stream up in the ceiling. There's no push. There's not a flame front coming. There's no firefighters being injured. If you're outside of that fire compartment, there's no victims being injured. The fire just gently dies out. Because again, we're not pressurizing the compartment in front of us. An example from reality, London Fire Brigade, fire on the 3rd floor or the 2nd floor, depending how you measure it, but it's high up. They're going to do a transitional attack, maybe at the same time as the interior crew comes in. Just a quick way to knock down the fire to buy some more time. Another example, if it's high up, in this case in a multi-apartment complex, use an aerial, same thing, use a straight stream. They could have started much earlier, done a steeper angle, but they use a straight stream. There's no pressurization. We won't injure firefighters. We won't injure people if we do it correctly. The steeper angle you have, the better your suppression will be, and we'll get to that. But they're being effective at starting to suppress that fire from an aerial in that case. And it can be really high. In this case, it's even higher up. They use the maximum reach of the ladder. It's really high up. But they're able to do a transitional attack using the reach of their stream. In this case, it's much better because they have a steeper angle of the stream, and we'll get to that. If you move the straight stream around, it will start to entrain air. So if you take a straight stream and you start to rotate it, you move it around, it will break up into droplets. And if it breaks up into lots of droplets, you will have air being entrained. It's like a NASCAR vehicle. In front of the vehicle, there's an overpressure. In the back of the vehicle, there's an underpressure. It's easier to drive. That's why they put themselves just behind the other car to get some advantage. Every droplet is the same. It's just thousands of them. Overpressure in front of the droplet and negative pressure behind it. The more droplets we create, the faster they go, the more air we're going to move in that direction. So if we take this example from UL and NIST, you will see a fire from two sides of the house. One is from the front of the house, one is from the back of the house. You will see a straight stream come into the window, shallow angle, moving it around, breaking into droplets, creating an overpressure. You will see on the other side of the house that everything is being pushed to the front in this case. Now you see that everything is pushed. So all the steam, all the toxic gases, all the heat is being pushed through the structure and out to the backside. So if there's victim on the other side of that fire, we will make it worse for them by not using the proper technique. So you want to stand as close to the facade as possible. A steep angle, a very steep angle on the stream increases the spread in the room. So if I take a nozzle stream, I want to have it as steep as possible so that it hits the ceiling and spreads out. You want to have the force of the water coming that way. You don't want to have the force of the water going that way. So you will have a negative pressure where the stream hits. You will have a positive pressure in front of it, which will push things. That will create that space to rotate. It will cool the smoke inside that space when it rotates around into those droplets of water. And you will, of course, also cool the surfaces. The steeper the angle, the more spread of the water, the more of the surfaces you will be able to cover with the water. Just from another angle, you will hit the ceiling, it will fan out, and the steeper the angle, the more it fans out. You will start to rotate the space, not just also horizontally. In that sense, depending on the size of the room, you will cool the stream and you will cool the surfaces. It may look like this if you do a steep angle. This is a thermal imager inside the fire compartment. A steep angle from outside comes in, it becomes a sprinkler, it fans out, and boom, we have suppression in the fire compartment. We don't have extinguishment, and we'll get to that. We have suppression. We just knocked the fire down. We didn't extinguish it, which are two different things. Now, you don't have to be a steep angle. It might work anyway. In this case, it's a very shallow angle, but a good solid straight stream. So it's effective. It doesn't pressurize, but it would be even better if you go closer so that the angle inside the room becomes steeper. So the closer you can get, the better it is. Just as an example, 4 different angles and hits. It's hard to see. I will do some graphics on it to see how. It will get to later. Sorry, I forgot about that. Also, hitting edges just increases the spread. So when we hit an edge, in this case, with this stream, we hit the edge of the window frame also. So they alternate, hit the ceiling, hit the edge, hit the ceiling, hit the edge. And that changes how the water bounces in the room, how it spreads into the room. So if you hit the window frame, in this case, they hit the door frame. Look at how the smoke changes behavior when they alternate between hitting the ceiling and the door frame. When it hits the ceiling, it goes there. Hits the door frame, it goes to the door frame. It changes where the negative pressure is, and it changes where the water goes. And that's a good thing. We want different kinds of spreads. We want water to hit different surfaces, so making that shift is a good thing. So if you have a steep angle in the top left corner, you get a lot of spread hitting that edge. If you go not on the edge, you go into the ceiling, you have less of a spread, but a different one. Also good. If you have a shallower angle, when the firefighter in this case stands on the fire truck, you get less of an angle, less spread, less effective. You can also change position. This is not the same as moving the stream. Moving the stream might cause it to break up the droplets, but this is changing position. This is an excellent example of a transitional attack done properly. Firefighter starts with a steep angle, straight stream, moves it maybe a little bit, but he's so close it doesn't matter. But changes his body position to reach different angles without making it overpressurized. So changing position and changing angle will make the stream more effective. You need to flow maximum of 10 seconds if you are in any residential or small business space. In any small volumes, anything below 50 square meters, if you're not effective within 10 seconds, you will not be effective after 10 minutes. That is not the problem. You need to change your angle or change room. So if you arrive to a fire, in this case, it's a training fire. they will do a transitional attack. First, they put some water above the fire. No problem with that. You can do that if you like. They go to a straight stream, and they're going to put it into the ceiling. And they're going to move the stream gently around the ceiling. There's no overpressurization because they're very close, even though they move the stream, and they don't move the stream very rapidly. But they're not being very effective. There's still fire burning because there's a separate fire compartment. So there's another room on fire, and you can never extinguish 2 rooms with just putting water in 1 room. That is probably not going to happen. So if you flow for 10 seconds, there's no need to continue. You're just wasting water, time, and creating water damages. In this case, this is a fog nail. So it's a different kind of transitional attack. We'll get to that later. But it's still the same thing. Look at this, what happens when there's suppression within the room. On the left side, you can see from inside the fire compartment. On the next one, you can see when the water hits the room, you can see it circulates inside the room. The water inside the room, you can see in the thermal imager, the water never leaves the fire compartment because water basically can't turn. And when you have suppression, you get a negative pressure. So the pressure inside that room, when the smoke contracts, goes down so that whatever you're cooling remains in that room. This another example of the same thing. In this case, you see a house. There's 2 rooms on fire. One is the first window, and there's a second room where the other fire is. Those are 2 separate rooms with an open doorway between them. The firefighter will suppress 1 compartment with a fog nail. That fire compartment will be suppressed within seconds, but there's nothing happening to the other fire compartment because that effect created in 1 room will probably not affect the other room in any significant way. It's not you can flow for 1 second or 10 minutes, domestic difference. You could increase the flow to 10 times more, wouldn't make a difference. It's not a water flow problem. It's a placement problem. You can only suppress basically 1 room regardless of the tool you choose and regardless of the flow. So in this case, you have to do 1 and then the other, or both at the same time to be effective. So without any attack, doesn't matter if it's interior or exterior, but especially from the exterior, you have to suppress each room by themselves. If there's fire in 3 rooms, you need 3 different ways of attacking that fire for the 3 rooms. 1 could be a fog nail, 1 could be a straight stream from the outside, 1 could be an interior attack. Doesn't matter. The most important thing is that you do each ideally at the same time or rapidly one after the other. And you want to prioritize high flow for a short amount of time. So in this case, it's a transitional attack, exterior attack done with 2 hose reels. There's a decent amount of fire, 2 windows opening. Is it possible to suppress this fire with 2 hose reels with a small amount of water, maybe 100 liters per minute, 2 hose reels? Absolutely. Will it take more time? Yes. Will it create more steam? Yes. But when we eventually reach a larger fire and we cannot suppress it, are we sure that our firefighters will know the difference and switch the hose line before, or are we just going to waste time because there's not enough water? Prioritize the highest flow you can get to the place with, of course, with a reasonable amount of time and effort to bring that water. High flow for short time rather than low flow for a long time. And after you do this transitional attack, if you have a good effect, you have to maintain that effect. Like I said before, This is not about extinguishment. You will probably never extinguish a fire from outside, regardless of the tool. Maybe if you drown the building or it burns itself out. But if there's a good fire, there will be fire you cannot reach from the outside. But you can suppress it. You can delay it. You can make it smaller. You can make it safer. You can make rescues and so on. So if we do like this, in this case it's from a fire in New Zealand. There's a fire on the first floor. It's spread to the second floor. The firefighters arrive. They use a fog, pressurize the building a little bit, but then they go to straight stream, much better. Now they do a little bit of each in each room. Great, absolutely. Main focus, you have to start at the bottom because all the heat rises. Whatever you do on top is just basically useless. And now they've achieved a really good effect. And if we pause here, that's a really good effect of a transitional attack. We've knocked down the fire, 10 seconds of water. We made the whole thing a lot better. Ideally, straight stream, deep, steep angle to do not pressurize this building, push it anywhere, just suppress it. Excellent. But now the firefighter has to go inside if they want to extinguish the fire and rescue people. Perfect. Absolutely. Again, this fire is not extinguished. It's only temporarily suppressed. So when they go inside, the fire is going to resume. It's going to grow back, which leads us back to square one. It was a wasted effort because as soon as they go inside, they don't have the angle they need to suppress the fire on the top floor. So they have to go inside, but now it's an angle problem. I don't have access to those rooms. I can't spray water through the ceiling on the first floor. Someone else, in this case, has to maintain that good suppression while the interior crew goes inside up to the second floor. So we have to maintain whatever good effect we get, otherwise it's wasted time because we have the same conditions on the top floor again for the victims, for the firefighters. So maybe the first firefighter goes inside. Now the backup firefighter or the pump operator of the truck or whoever does it takes a nozzle, steep angle, straight stream, maximum 10 seconds for effect, get a knockdown, shut the line down, the fire starts to rebuild again. Now you give it another 3 seconds of water, it's extinguished again. And they do that until the interior crew gets to the second compartment. Then they have an angle to suppress the fire on the second compartment, actually go in and extinguish. Now in Sweden, it was basically never taught to do an exterior attack. One, because it was considered that to be a real firefighter, you go inside. Otherwise, you're just basically a civilian standing spraying water. That has gone away. We know that it's very effective to do it from the outside. Two, the firefighters were very afraid of pushing heat and steam towards the firefighters that were going inside. So to do a transitional attack from outside at the same time as firefighters were entering was not okay. But that was when exterior attacks were done with a fog, for instance, and pushed everything in front of it, or it was a shallow angle from a longer distance. The stream broke up and pushed everything towards the firefighters. Not a happy day to be a firefighter. But if done properly from the outside, we will not injure civilians. We will not injure firefighters. We will make it better for them. So for doing it, for how? We want to use a straight stream that is kept stationary. We want to stand as close to the facade as possible. You want to flow for maximum 10 seconds without evaluation, because if you're not successful within 10 seconds, something is wrong. It's not a flow problem, probably. It's an angle problem, and it's probably a fire in multiple rooms. You want to prioritize high flow for a short time, and you want to maintain those good effects you're getting. Now, transitional attack, this is with water and a nozzle. Of course, you can do it in different ways. It's just an exterior attack. You could do it with a dry chem extinguisher. It might be the absolutely fastest way to get any suppression onto a, let's say, an apartment fire. In this case, it's from a research study. It's a small compartment using a dry chem extinguisher, using it from the bottom, working yourself from the bottom, working your way up and get suppression in a fire compartment. So dry chem extinguisher might be the absolutely fastest way to achieve that initial suppression. Not extinguishment. It will come back, but we buy ourselves time. You can do it with a dry chemical spike. This is just dry chem through basically a fog nail, a tip. Inside a fire compartment, you can do it through a wall, through a window. You drill a hole, you punch it through, depending on what the wall is made of. You get dry chem into the compartment. You get rapid suppression. One single firefighter can have a small vehicle go straight to the fire. The big fire truck with water arrives later, but you have some initial suppression without the delay of getting a big fire truck, for instance. Dry chemical spikes are excellent for fast response vehicle, command vehicles. Anyone who should be able to do a knockdown on the fire before the big fire truck arrives. Or you can use a fog nail or a cutting extinguisher. This is basically water through a piercing nozzle with either low pressure or high pressure. The bigger pressure you have, the more effective it's going to be. Ricardo mentioned the amount of water you need to suppress a room and content fire. That is highly dependent on the situation. In this case, you will see a big fire. This is a fairly big room on the top side of this barn. It is probably 100 square meters and a big volume. We are waiting for the fire to build up in this barn. It's all made of wood, so everything burns in here. The fire is going to increase. The radiation is getting so hot that we're standing in the stair here. We have to back down just because the radiation is so hot. That's actually me trying to. My gloves are too hot. I can't hold the camera. I want to shoot videos, but it's too hot. I go. And that we let that big open space go to fully involved. The entire upper part of that barn or old house we're burning for training is being ignited. This is a big volume. There's a lot of fire. It's an enormous amount of heat release rate. We're going to use one fog nail with about 70 liters per minute to control that space. That's 70 liters per minute to control that in that entire space. So in the staircase, there will be a firefighter doing some gas cooling with a fog nozzle. That makes no difference because they're not circulating the air up in the space. So just, we can take that later if you want, but it doesn't make any difference in this. There will be a fog nail. You can't see it, but it's coming from the floor below through the floor up into the space above. And that fog nail, now the fog nail is being engaged. You're going to see all flaming combustion stops within a maximum of 10 seconds. Because we are getting the fog nail in, it rotates the space, and it cools, and it creates steam. And if we don't have people in there, steam is our best friend. The more steam we have, the more suppression we can achieve. And after about 15 seconds, they do a little bit of gas cooling from here, but you can see that basically the entire upper floor is back to the primary fire. It's not extinguished, it's suppressed. The amount of water you need is depending on the tools you choose or the methods you choose, I would highly argue. But if you use a transition attack with an open window with a straight stream, again, like I said before, you want to use high flow for a short amount of time. Firefighting is rarely a flow problem. It's rarely that you don't have enough water. I would argue that it's 95% of your problem as a commander, as a firefighter, is getting the water in the right place. That is the problem. That is a practically hard problem. It's not about how much water you put there. It's how you get it there. That is in the right room when there's actually fire. So transitional attack, how to perform it correctly, we've talked about. Now I want to touch upon when to perform it, which is basically why do we want to use a transitional attack? So when? Of course, when you cannot enter the building. There might be a collapse hazard. There might be dangerous goods. There might be tons of reasons why you cannot or do not want to enter the building. And of course, we will try to use transitional attacks with straight streams, with dry chem, with fog nails and cutting extinguishers, everything we can. It is unlikely that you will extinguish the building. It will probably burn to the ground, but it will do so slowly if you are successful at suppression. And you might prevent fire spread and so on. We'll get to that. But you also want to use it when you're not ready to enter the building. It takes time to be prepared to enter the building for lots of reasons. If you look at what needs to get done at an incident, you have a long list and you have probably your own checklist in your head. What do I need to do before I go into a building? It might be I need to search for information. I need to place vehicles in certain places. I need to prepare equipment. I need to find where the fire is. I need to talk to people. I need to isolate things. I need to ventilate things. It takes time. In Sweden, we have a highly dysfunctional system where the commander is supposed to do all this. The commander should try to decide who should do what. I think it's a broken system. The commander is supposed to tell the driver, I want you to place the vehicle over here. And the commander is supposed to tell one of the firefighters, I want you to knock down the fire over here. They're supposed to tell the other firefighter, I want you to ventilate this space, or do a quick search inside that room, or I want you to come with me. We're going to go to the backside. The commander is supposed to be in charge. The problem is that reality, we meet situations like this. Situations where it's chaos. There is too much information to process. There's no commander in the world that can say, okay, I'm going to look at building construction. Is there a risk to collapse? Is there a risk for power connection? Oh, who should do what? Should we take a ladder and help them? Should we catch people falling? Should we start to suppress the fire? If we're going to suppress the fire, going to do it from inside or outside? Which is the tool we're going to use? Are we using a fan to pressurize the staircase? There are so many issues here to solve. It's impossible for any human being to be able to be that good. Impossible. At that moment, the commander doesn't know anything more than the firefighters. There's no advantage. I didn't gain any information advantage as a commander. The commander can't be everywhere at the same time. There's a geographical limitation. I can't be on both sides of the building at the same time to look what is happening, to give orders. And it's impossible for one brain to collect and analyze all that information and decide what is the most optimal thing to do. Which means that any system we have that initiates these actions needs to take into account that the commander needs help and time to collect, analyze, and decide on information. We need to distribute not just hands and feet, we need to distribute the information and decisions on multiple brains. Now you can do that in multiple ways. I just want to lift this, that you can pick apart whatever needs to get done and make it so that each individual gets a different assignment. And for this case, one of those assignments could be search and cool flames and smoke. In my fire truck, it would be one firefighter would know when that fire truck stops at a fire, Your job, your only job, is to do something about that fire. I don't care what tools you use. I don't care how you do it. Just do it, because I'm occupied doing other things. I will, for instance, interview the people coming there. If you give a system where you say to a firefighter, I want you to do this. I don't want to give an order for it. You have to think for yourself. You give them a list. This is all the things you're allowed to do. A system like that also needs restrictions. What can a firefighter not do? Because if you don't have restrictions, they can do anything and there will be chaos. But if you have a system that clearly specifies that this is the thing we expect you to do, but you can't do this, you can't go inside the building for yourself, you can't do this, you can't use these tools because it will be dangerous or it will mess up my command possibilities. But if you have that, and simplest of all, just assign one seat of your fire truck saying, we want you, if there's a fire presenting itself when we arrive, you are supposed to do something about it because I am busy doing other things. And in my fire truck, it would be you are allowed to take one hose, one nozzle, and connect it to the fire truck and do a fire attack. You cannot drag out all the hoses because I want to move the fire truck later. That's a restriction. You can't go into the building because I'm a commander. I'm responsible for your safety. You can't go into the building and do it, but you can be on the outside, for instance. So when you are not ready to enter the building, you should have firefighters ideally by command or by themselves doing exterior attacks, trying to suppress that fire to make it better. The third reason you want to do a transitional attack is to allow for earlier ventilation, which is rescue. So to explain how I think about this, I have some axioms, my personal truths, what I think is true within firefighting. The biggest threats to victims are toxic gases. Seems to be all around the world. I don't think it's a difference where you work. The second biggest threat to victims is heat. There's radiation from the fire, radiation from the smoke layer, convection from the smoke layer. Now, what I don't know is if steam is a common or a potential heat problem. So if we generate a lot of steam with water, the amount of energy that is contained within the steam is tremendous. It will make heat damages to the lower parts of the human lungs. So if we create heat by creating steam, we might make it worse for victims. It is very unclear to me in this case how big of an emphasis we need to put on this. But it's definitely true that we want to reduce the amount of steam created if we want to do rescues. Because it can't be good. The problem is, how bad is it? Our tactics in Sweden and in most parts stems from a reality when the fire started, and this is a fire test from UL, in the 40s and 50s when there was basically natural materials. We had a fire development that was very slow. If I jump forward in this video, and these are available online if you want to watch the videos, if you have not, the amount of smoke created, the amount of toxic gases created, this is about 25 minutes into the fire, was ridiculously low compared to standards. The fire developed slow. The amount of toxic gases produced was very low. That meant that our tactics, if we go back 40 or 50 years, was we want to search for victims fast because the fire develops so slow and the toxic environment is so low that we have time. Then we fight the fire because that's secondary to rescue, and then maybe we ventilate if we need to. Now, if we have a bigger problem, if we imagine ourselves being in a big cornfield high cornfield, and we're playing hide and seek with our children. The children are running around in the cornfield. We don't know where they are. To find them, we have to search for them. And we try to develop different methods of searching. We search with right hand, left hand. We do a guided search. We do a rope search. We try to increase the likelihood of finding them faster. Now the farmer starts his tractor and starts to harvest the field. Are we going to continue to search for our kids and hope to find them before the harvester runs them over? Or are we going to run to the harvester and ask the farmer to stop their tractor? Both of those options are rescue. One, we're searching to find them. The second one, we're taking away the threat. If we look at a modern fire, the exact same building, but now we have modern materials. We have synthetic plastics creating a much faster fire, much bigger heat release rates, and much more toxic gases. Already way before we arrive at scenes, we have tons of smoke and a toxic environment that people cannot survive. And zero visibility. This is the modern, of course, firefighting environment. We don't have time. The victims don't have time. We don't have time. Searching for victims in zero visibility is too slow. It doesn't matter if we're a small apartment or a big villa. Searching for victims in zero visibility is too slow. We will never be fast enough. It doesn't matter if we're the best firefighters in the world. So rescue is an objective, not a task. If we search for people or drag them out, that's a rescue. Sure, but it's slow. If we ventilate and take the threat against the victims, that is much faster. So one of my axioms is ventilation is critical for rescue. But as Ricardo alluded to, we cannot ventilate the building with fans or opening windows because the risk of fire increasing rapidly is too high. Doesn't matter, it always goes bad. It's just that the potential for the fire to dramatically increase in size and kill everyone is just too high. Which means that ventilation is critical for rescue. So if we're going to do an interior attack, we have to first search for the fire and suppress it to be able to ventilate as fast as possible so that we can search and find the victims faster. The objective is rescue, but it's last on the list of priorities. Rescue is an objective, not a task. And if fire suppression is the first priority for rescue, it's the first thing we have to achieve to be able to ventilate and rescue, it means that the fastest method and tool to achieve that suppression is the best. So if I am able to suppress the fire from outside even before I get inside, that allows me to put on ventilation, opening windows and put a fan on, which allows me to search for victims faster. My personal and how I teach as a commander is I don't care if I arrive to a fire and if it's a rescue scenario or not, because my objective is to first suppress the fire as fast as possible. From the outside, if that's the fastest, from the inside, if that's the fastest, or both ways if I'm not sure or can, so that I can ventilate as fast as possible, opening everything up to make it better for the firefighters, to make it better for the victims, and then find people. And even before I find people, I've made them safer and I made them lie there in a better environment. So when do we do transitional attack? To allow for earlier ventilation, if that is an opportunity. Now, if you don't know where the fire is, of course you can't do it. You have to go interior, for instance, or find the fire in somewhere else. Of course, we can make it to make the fire attack faster. If there's a smaller fire, maybe the interior crew is much faster to get to the scene of the fire. Maybe we can make the fire attack safer. If there's a smaller fire, again, the interior attack will be safer, there'll be less smoke that can ignite, less heat release rate, and less risk of, for instance, the building to collapse. Or we can, of course, delay or prevent fire spread. We can delay the fire, we can prevent it from fire spreading. Nothing says here about extinguishment. We're not extinguishing. The fire's not going to go out from outside. We're just delaying, making it better, temporary, achieving things so that the interior crew can do their job more effectively. It is complementary and not a replacement for interior firefighting. So transitional attack, is this new and innovative? Absolutely not. This has been firefighting forever, to put streams in from other side. Can we do it more effective and safer with modern information? Absolutely. Those streams here, way too shallow angle from further away, they will pressurize the building and push stuff in. That's not good for rescues. It's not good for firefighting probably. We can't do interior firefighting at the same time because we're pushing things against the firefighters, and that is a lot of steam being generated. It will be hot. So we can do the transitional attack more effectively by using those techniques. And it can support the interior crew in much better ways. But also, again, transitional attack is not just a nozzle and a straight stream. It's also about using dry chem extinguishers, piercing dry chem extinguishers with piercing nozzles, and fog nails and cutting extinguishers. And that whole separate issue, we can talk about how to use those kind of tools in a different webinar. But they're super effective both for making rescues better, but especially for making property conservation, rescuing buildings, and making firefighters safer.